Hello, welcome to Return to Self. My name's Alana, and if we haven't met before, then it's lovely to meet you. Now, today I'm going to be talking about toxic shame, bullying, and internalized anger. Why you turned against yourself and how to stop it. I'm just going to put in a little trigger warning here for those of you that have experienced bullying. Some of the content in this video could be triggering. If you don't feel like you are in the state of mind at the moment to be listening to this, it might be best to return to this video at another time when you're able to cope. So if you grew up being bullied at school, at work, or inside your own family, and now you're carrying constant self-criticism, suppressed rage, or deep shame, this video is for you. Because what you're dealing with isn't a personality flaw. It's a nervous system adaptation. Today we're talking about toxic shame, how it forms through bullying, and why so often the anger that should have protected us ends up being turned inwardsly instead. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about understanding what happened to you so that it no longer keeps happening inside of you. Bullying isn't just hurtful behaviour, it's a power move. It's unspoken message that something is wrong with you. And that makes it okay for me to dominate you. Over time, the nervous system stops registering the bullying as external danger and starts storing it as its identity. That's how shame becomes toxic. Healthy shame says, I did something wrong. It is situational and it's usually temporary. Toxic shame, on the other hand, says, I am wrong. This is very different to normal shame. Unfortunately, once shame becomes identity-based, the system starts organising everything around hiding, appeasing the bully or bullies, or self-attacking. Here's the part most people miss. Anger is biologically designed to protect your boundaries. It says that wasn't okay. But in bullying situations, anger is more often than not unsafe for the following reasons. Retaliation makes things worse. No one steps in to protect you. Expressing anger can often lead to humiliation, and you're labelled as the problem. Especially when bullying happens in childhood, in schools, within families, or in workplaces where you can't just up and leave. The system adapts by turning inwards on itself. Because fighting back or escaping wasn't possible, so the system makes a survival choice. It's safer to turn anger inwards than it is to express it outwards. Like I mentioned before, anger is meant to protect boundaries, but when expressing anger would make things worse, lead to punishment, increase humiliation, the body says, I'll aim this anger inwards instead, and that's how internalized anger is born. It often shows up as harsh self-criticism, perfectionism, self-blame, sudden rage followed by shame, or deep exhaustion and collapse. Chronic tension in the jaw, gut, or neck. And this isn't because you're angry inside, it's because your anger was never allowed to be expressed. It was never allowed to complete its protective function. When anger has nowhere to go, it doesn't disappear, it mutates. This isn't dysfunction, this is contained survival energy. In this next part of the video, I'm going to walk you through something called the shame anger loop, which involves the following steps. Firstly, it involves some sort of bullying incident. The second step involves anger rising as a result of some sort of boundary violation. The third step, that anger is felt as being unsafe or perceived to be unsafe. The fourth step is that anger turns inwards and then becomes shame. The fifth step is that shame then collapses the nervous system. And the sixth step is that the system then blocks healthy expression of anger. and the loop just repeats again, basically. From the inside, it feels like self-hatred. But the real question is, who were you never allowed to be angry at? Research consistently shows that children and adults who are bullied are often missing important skills. They're missing pushback. This is where somebody feels confident enough to be able to defend themselves. People typically fail to have pushback when they haven't been modelled or taught boundary setting from their parents or caregivers. Or they have been taught that their needs don't matter, or they've been taught to play the role of the good boy or good girl. How do we address the issues associated with toxic shame and internalized anger? Well, healing doesn't start with loving yourself or letting go. It starts with separation. It starts with separating your shame from your identity, anger from danger, self-protection from attack. Often this looks like noticing when the inner critic activates itself, tracking anger in the body without acting on it, allowing anger to exist without collapse or explosion. Anger doesn't need to be discharged violently. It needs to be felt safely and oriented outwardly toward what actually caused the harm in the first place. By practicing self-compassion and accessing our wise self, by acting as a parent to ourselves internally, we can start to acknowledge and address much of the anger being felt inside us internally. IFS can be particularly useful when working with the various parts of ourselves that develop in response to bullying incidents. However, self-compassion alone doesn't work, and it shouldn't be the first step that we take. Unfortunately, this is why affirmations often fail. When you try to jump straight into self-love without restoring anger, the nervous system hears the following: be quiet, be nice, don't protest, which is the same instructions bullying gave you. That's not healing, that's internalized compliance. So first we have to stabilize ourselves to end the inner bullying. The goal of this is to stop ongoing harm inside you. Before anything can heal, the nervous system has to register. The attack is not happening right now. Because internalized bullying often continues through harsh self-talk, constant self-monitoring, perfectionism, anticipatory shame, and this is not self-awareness, it's continued threat. Repair here looks like naming the inner critic as learnt protection, not truth. Interrupting shame spirals with orientation. So for example, saying something like, I'm safe right now. Reducing environments and relationships that replicate the original bullying dynamic. This matters because you cannot heal shame while still being attacked, even if the attacker is internal. We have to de-shame. We have to separate our identity from the experience. The goal of this is to move shame out of the identity layer. Toxic shame fused who you are with what happened to you. Repair means gently pulling those apart. This stage involves language shifts, so shifting your language from I'm too much to I was treated as too much. Tracking shame as a state and not as a self. Allowing grief for what should have been protected. This is often where sadness emerges underneath the numbness. As long as shame equals identity, anger will keep turning inward because the system believes that you are the problem. After this, we need to start reclaiming anger as protection, not destruction. The goal here is to restore anger's original function. Internalized anger formed because outward anger was unsafe. Now the work is not expressing anger at people, it's letting the body learn that anger does not equal danger. Repair here looks like naming the inner critic as learnt protection, not truth. includes feeling anger in the body without acting or suppressing. Letting anger orientate outwards, this shouldn't have happened, and differentiating anger from aggression. When this happens, anger becomes clarity, it becomes boundary awareness, it becomes self-respect and not explosion or collapse. Until anger can face outwards, shame will continue to absorb it. The next step is restoring boundaries and power, and the goal here is to rebuild agency after power violation. Bullying isn't just emotional harm, it's actually power being removed. Repair requires a nervous system to experience the idea that I have impact. This looks like practicing micro boundaries, saying no internally before externally, choosing where not to engage, letting yourself disengage without justification. Power doesn't come from confrontation, it comes from choice. When power returns, the system no longer needs self-attack to maintain safety. The next step is moving into relational repair and safe witnessing. The goal here is to let shame be seen without being reinforced. Toxic shame formed in isolation when you were unprotected. Repair happens in attuned presence. In therapy, by having safe friendships, by collaborating with groups with clear power ethics. The key ingredient here is being seen without being corrected, minimized, or analyzed away. This matters because shame dissolves in the presence of non-threatening people, not insight alone. The final step in this process is integration, from survival to self-trust. This goal is to retire survival roles with respect. At this stage, the inner critic should be beginning to soften. Anger becomes information. Shame becomes a passing signal, not a collapse. You don't erase what happened. Instead, you're able to integrate it. The nervous system learns, I can feel angry without losing connection. I can see without being destroyed. I don't need to disappear to be safe. What healing is not, and this is really important, it's not forcing forgiveness. It's not forcing positive thinking over anger. It's not premature compassion for the people that abused you. It's not letting go without restoring power, which bypasses your grief. Those often recreate the original silencing. Toxic shame heals not by self-improvement, but by restoring what was taken. Restoring your safety, restoring your dignity, restoring your protection, and restoring your sovereignty. Internalized anger resolves when it's finally allowed to say, what happened to me matters and it hurt me. It's important to keep in mind that your original unhealed response was an adaptation to extremely complex situations for which you did not have the knowledge, guidance, skills, or support to manage in a healthier manner. This is crucial because nothing about this means that you were weak. Internalized anger was intelligent survival. It helped you to stay connected, to avoid escalation, and to get through environments that weren't emotionally safe. The problem isn't the adaptation. The problem is that your system may still be using it long after the danger has passed. Remember, healing doesn't start with loving yourself or letting go. It starts with separation. It starts with separating shame from identity, anger from danger, self-protection from self-attack. And often this looks like noticing when the inner critic activates, tracking anger in your body without acting on it, allowing anger to exist without collapse or explosion. Anger doesn't need to be discharged violently. It needs to be safely felt and oriented outwardsly towards what actually caused you the harm in the first place. Know that you never deserve to be bullied and that you are not responsible for the actions of others. If you are one of the millions of people out there that has experienced bullying, know that you are not alone in your experience. Be compassionate with yourself, as this can be an extremely traumatic experience to go through. If you need support in relation to this or feel as if this video has triggered a lot of feelings for you, please reach out to either a therapist, a free phone counselling service in your area, or share your feelings with people you love and trust. And most importantly, seek to place yourself in environments which build you up, not take you down. I'll wrap up this video here. I've covered a lot of information throughout this video and I don't want it to get too long. No, my thoughts are with you as you walk through this part of your healing journey. If you have found this video valuable, please like, subscribe or comment, as I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences on this topic. Other than that, I wish you the best and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.